Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today's January 8th, and right now we're looking at the infrared satellite imagery, and we've got so much to talk about here that we're just going to dive into things as we usually do. But you can see out here this cold air and the system developing as we speak right here. That is our bomb cyclone. It is undergoing explosive cyclogenesis as we speak, and this is going to dive right into the northern portion of Vancouver Island, casting an extremely powerful gradient here across the Pacific Northwest. We got all kinds of blizzard warnings, winter storm warnings, wind advisories, high wind advisories, high surf warnings. We got everything here, folks, and we're going to then bring some Arctic air and try to pivot that down into British Columbia here and leak some of that out into portions west of the mountain ranges here. And of course, it's going to be colder the further you go to the east. So let's just go ahead and just dive right into things here. And you can see the blizzard warning 4 a.m. tomorrow morning through 10 a.m. Wednesday includes the Olympic Mountains and the Cascades, generally 2,000 feet plus. And you can see what exactly a blizzard is. Some kind of restriction to visibility that brings it down to equal or less than a quarter mile, 35 mile per hour winds for at least 3 hours. That is what blizzard conditions are, and you're going to easily be reaching that threshold here across some of the terrain of the Cascades, all the way down through Oregon, British Columbia as well. Some of the Blue Mountains also are under blizzard warnings as we speak. Now look at the coastal flood watch. We're going to have just some powerful winds and a powerful westerly surge down the Strait of Juan de Fuca also, so we're watching out for this. When it correlates with some of the high tide activity, you can see that 2 to 3 feet of inundation is possible. Do not drive on flooded roadways, and this is going to be some serious wave action also up and down the coastline as we go through the day tomorrow especially. And you can see the strong winds. National Weather Service Seattle showing the high wind warnings for the coastal areas of Whidbey Island and the San Juans here, and the wind advisory elsewhere, damaging gusts from 50 to 60 miles per hour, probably a 1-2 punch as well. We're going to get some southerlies with the frontal passage, then we're going to get powerful westerlies and some powerful southwesterlies after the front passes as we go through Tuesday afternoon also, and some extremely strong winds across the higher terrain with heavy snow that'll be falling, and that's why we have that blizzard warning. And you can see this is from Seattle National Weather Service talking about the blizzard warning again above 2,000 feet, 4 a.m. Tuesdays when that goes into effect. Just some ridiculous amounts of snow are going to be falling in a 24-hour period. It could be exceeding 2 inches per hour in some of the cases. Winds gusting 65 miles per hour, probably stronger across some of the higher terrain as well. And of course, the travel is going to be extremely difficult. Expect past closures here over the Tuesday and Wednesday time frame. If you need to travel across the passes, get it done today, folks, because you're going to be stuck up there if you try to do this on the day tomorrow. Taking a look here, the Cascades and Blue Mountains, Pendleton, Oregon, you can see this is a major hazard out here. It's 4 out of 5, and again, winds gusting probably over 60 miles per hour and widespread blowing snow. And this is for Portland National Weather Service. You can see the blizzard warning all the way down the Oregon Cascades as well. Wind advisory for some of the Willamette Valley. You got high surf warnings for the coastal areas here. And we're going to be bringing big snow down towards southern Oregon as well. I'll show you that here in a moment. But look at this high surf warning. And you can see some of these breakers, 28 to 35 feet along the coastline here. Destructive waves may wash over beaches, jetties, and other structures unexpectedly. People can be swept off the rocks and drown while observing high surf. Severe beach erosion may destroy coastal properties and buildings. Higher than normal water run-up is expected on beaches and low-lying shoreline. Especially watch out during the high tide periods. And this is all the way down the coastline here. This is Medford, talking about those huge breaking waves as well. This goes through at least 10 p.m. on the day Wednesday. And this is looking for, I believe this is for the Oregon Cascades. And you can see some of the gusts, 75 miles per hour for the higher ski resort elevations here, and 1 to 4 feet. That's not inches here, folks, mainly above 3,000 feet. And the Oregon Cascades is going to get hit really hard as well. And I'll show you why in a moment. Taking a look at the inland portions, there's Spokane. You can see Monday, Tuesday, the big storm rolling through here. And then we got that Arctic air that's really going to target areas east of the Cascades, especially some dangerously low temperatures possible here as we go through the weekend. Here's a little bit further inland across Idaho and Montana. We're just going to have all kinds of high impact stuff going on here with the Tuesday storm and the very cold Arctic air. And then we've got additional systems probably coming through this weekend. They're going to bring additional snow to portions of the Northwest. We'll dive into some of that as we go through the video. And of course, prepare for these very cold temperatures. These are not wind chills. Look at Helena, Montana, negative 26 low temperatures on Saturday morning. Look at Cut Bank up there getting below negative 30. Chester, Lewiston, negative 28. So yeah, be prepared, folks. This is looking at Crater Lake. Check it out. 3 to 4 feet expected as you go on in through Wednesday night here. And again, some very intense snowfall rates are likely to occur at times. Total whiteout conditions to be expected. Now let's take a look at what's coming here. So you can see the Hawaii Islands in the bottom left here. Here's British Columbia, Washington, and Oregon. There's the system now that's bringing some rain across the region, kind of almost like acting as a warm frontal feature for this developing bomb cyclone that is moving into the northern tip of Vancouver Island. And as this dives into British Columbia, look at that power-packed pressure gradient there from British Columbia all the way through Washington and Oregon. That's what's going to be driving these blizzard conditions as we go through the day tomorrow, and the big surf out there and the strong westerly and southwesterly surges. Now look at this little low pressure system that kind of sneakily develops into Oregon here as well. And this is just going to keep the very heavy snowfall going across some of the Oregon Cascades as we go through the day Wednesday also. And then we sag that Arctic air mass. And we'll look into that in a little bit more detail coming up. But we could have an interesting scenario playing out this weekend as well. If we get enough cold air into place, you can see that Kona low down here wants to bring some subtropical moisture back up into that Arctic air mass for portions of the Pacific Northwest. So very interesting potential here coming up this weekend as well. But this is going to be waffling back and forth over the next few days. So you got to stay in touch here on the channel and make sure to check back daily. There's also going to be more live streams coming this week here to try to cover this entire event as we go through the weekend. Tomorrow, we're also going to have thunderstorm outlooks across a lot of the Pacific Northwest, including British Columbia. And this is going to continue on in through Wednesday, down towards the Oregon coastline also. And this is 100-meter wind speed. So I want to show you the timing on the strong winds. This is the initial system here. Then you can see the power-packed low into Vancouver Island, the powerful winds up and down the coastal areas with the frontal system as we go through very late tonight into tomorrow morning. Then we're going to have a strong southwesterly surge moving across the area here. And you can see the winds turning westerly on the coastal areas. Big surge down the Strait of Juan de Fuca, possibly including Whidbey Island, maybe even some of the areas a little bit further inland on the coast there, and big winds across eastern Washington, the higher terrain, of course, the blizzard warning, yada, yada, yada. Then you can see the next system rolling across Oregon here as we go through Tuesday night, and that could even bring a little bit of lower snow levels with it as well on the north side, a little bit of a deformation band there. It's going to keep the heavy precip going as we go on in through Wednesday. And then we start to worry about the Arctic air. More on that here in a moment. Looking at the accumulated max 10-meter wind gusts on the NAM 3KM. If we put this into motion, you'll see those strong winds arrive as we go through tonight. Look at Seattle 46. You're starting to gust up over 55 miles per hour, potentially for the coastal areas. And then we start to bring some stronger winds also on in through very early Tuesday morning. Look at that Seattle clocking in around 50 miles per hour. Some gusty winds for Tacoma and Olympia and down through the Willamette Valley, also up towards Everett, possibly over 50 miles per hour. And then the southwesterly surge and the westerly surge come rolling in here as we go through the day Tuesday. You can see it up there across some of the Strait of Juan de Fuca there. You can see the Orcas Island, the San Juans here, southwest BC, the higher terrain. What a storm. Pressure gradient is going to be very intense with this system. And this is looking at Seattle, Tacoma. So you can see 48. It also shows that 1-2 punch, kind of the southerly winds and then turning a little bit more southwesterly here. So you could have some gusts up towards 50 miles per hour in the Seattle metro. Here's Whidbey Island. Gusts are expected to be up over 60 miles per hour, as you can see. And this is actually direction change, northeast flow with that Arctic air's arrival. More on that here in a moment. Here's Long Beach Airport. They're up on Vancouver Island. You can see the big winds associated with that storm system as well. Tillamook all the way down through the Oregon coast, 55 plus potential up and down the coastline. This is Crater Lake. Look at this, just madness. And there's going to be huge amounts of snow falling during these intense winds, as you can see. So just a wild time for some of the areas of the Washington, Oregon Cascades and a lot of the higher terrain of British Columbia. This is Quileute on the Washington coast. You can see the 50 to 60 mile per hour gusts likely. Here's Stampede Pass with huge amounts of snow occurring at this time as well. Just pure blizzard whiteout conditions are incoming here on the day tomorrow, folks. Crystal Mountain. Now look at some of these snowfall totals here in 24-hour period. What is this calling for? I mean, it looks like it's seeing up towards over 2 feet, maybe even 2.5 feet here in some of these ensembles for Crystal Mountain. Whistler, big snow incoming. Mount Baker, huge snow incoming, perhaps 2 feet in the 24-hour period. Stevens Pass, also blizzard will be ongoing on the day tomorrow. Now, taking a look at what everybody wants to know about, what kind of Arctic air chances do we have? How has this evolved? We're looking at the GFS on the right versus the European on the left. And this is last night's run, 06Z. Here goes our windstorm there. Good model agreement with that. That is on its way, and the blizzard is on its way for tomorrow. And then we start to pivot the polar lobe down here, and you can still see the European wants to bring that closer to the Pacific Northwest. This would introduce more cold air into the area here versus the GFS, which would still bring some cold air into Western Washington. It'd be much tougher to get it down into Oregon here, but we'll see how this trends here over the next couple of days. But you can clearly see the European favors a little bit of a colder solution as of right now. And you put that into motion here, and you can kind of see, then we get a really interesting system here. If we have cold air in place and you bring a Pacific low into that air mass here, you can really create some crazy weather here. We're not going to get into snow amounts just yet because this low is going to be bouncing around. And again, we're trying to figure out just how much Arctic air we have moving into the area. Now, taking a look at the GFS, this is the hot off the presses run, the 12Z versus the 06Z. Let's put that into motion and see what we have here. There goes the windstorm as we go through tomorrow. And that system, as you can see it Tuesday night, is going to keep that heavy precip going across some of the Cascades. Excuse me. And then you can see that polar lobe swing down here. It looks pretty similar here, and this will drop off some cold air west of the Cascades here. This Arctic air arrival, though, is probably not out over water enough to bring a dynamic snowstorm with it, however. But it does have that chance to bring some cooler air down into the Pacific Northwest. As you can see, not too much of a change here between the 06 and the 12Z run, however. And then you can kind of see how the storm system continues to show up. And if there's cold air in place, when that one burrows into Western Washington, there could be big snow impacts across the lower elevations of Southwest BC and some of Western Washington in this scenario. So we'll be watching that very closely here. And of course, if it's a colder solution and this low comes a little bit further south, then you can start to include more of Southwest Washington and some of Northwest Oregon as well. And it goes without saying that this is going to cause some snow across some of Eastern Washington, of course, it's Eastern Oregon and some of the higher terrain of the Rocky Mountains, so Idaho and Montana here as we go through the weekend. Now, taking a look here at the GFS on the left versus itself. So I'm showing you a dew point temperature. I want to show you the advancement of this Arctic air mass here as we go on in towards the weekend. I want to show you the wind speeds here as well. So here we go with our windstorm there. That pushes through. Then you can see that next system on Tuesday night rolling through, keeping that precipitation going. And then we start to bring that Arctic air mass down across BC. And just a reminder that GFS has been the warmer of the solutions here for portions west of the Cascades of BC and Washington. So as we go on in through the day, Thursday, you can kind of see that Fraser River outflow showing up there and start to sneak down some of that Arctic air into Western Washington. And you can see it here because Seattle, look at its dew point, about 19 degrees. That's a sign that some Arctic air is getting into Western Washington. And then here comes our next system from the west here. And you can see Seattle still at 20-degree dew point there. That's going to be some evaporative cooling, and that could start things out as snow across some of Western Washington. Willamette Valley would be warmer, but Southwest BC would be plenty cold also. And you can kind of see that easterly flow here in advance of that storm. And when the precipitation overrides that cooler air, you'd get that evaporative cooling, and it could be bringing some measurable snow towards Western Washington. I don't want to get caught up in the details of the amounts of the snow just yet. We have to worry about how much cold air is going to get out and just how, how cold is it going to get? What is the track of this next storm going to take as we go through the weekend? But you can see this could be a very dynamic situation unfolding as we go in through Friday night into Saturday. Now, taking a look at the 12Z GFS, let's go scroll all the way on through the weekend here. And we're going to look at Thursday. Some of that Arctic air tries to get down into the area, which could bring some snow with it as well. We'll continue to watch that closely over the next couple days. And then here goes that weekend system coming up here. And if there's cold air in place, you can see what this would mean as you drop a few inches down into the lower elevations here, maybe even a messy transition of some ice showing up there as well, which could potentially even impact areas down towards Portland. Well, we got a lot to watch here as we go through the weekend. And looking at the NAM 12 cam, so I wanted to show this kind of a shorter range model here. Only goes out 84 hours, but you can see that Arctic air sagging on it as well. And you can see the dew points really crashing there for Seattle as you go on in through Thursday evening. That's a sign of that Arctic air making its way into Western Washington. And you can see that very cold air there across British Columbia. Now, taking a look at Friday Harbor, you can see this is the initial system here. This is going to be mainly a westerly surge or southwesterly surge, but this is the northeast wind, the Fraser River outflow there. And you can see some of the models have some pretty strong gusts with that. And the European, a little bit colder than GFS, will be a little bit stronger here with that Fraser River outflow and some of these offshore winds as the Arctic air moves in. Now, this is looking at the Canadian here on the left and the Icon, the German model here on the right. And this is the 12Z data, so we'll take a look at it since we have it. I mean, why not, right? Excuse me. Still getting over my cold. Now taking a look at the Canadian model and the Europe and the German model, sorry. But you can see both solutions are pretty cold. They would bring down plentiful amounts of cold air into Western Washington, potentially even Western Oregon here as well. But also I want you to watch what comes this weekend. As you can see, the storms are tracking a little bit further south on both the Icon and the Canadian model here. So that's the result of some colder air getting in. The track of this next storm would also be a bit further south. So we have a lot to watch here, as you can see. Going on in towards the weekend. And this is looking at the European last night's run. We're looking at 2-meter temperature anomaly. Look, I just wanted to show you guys the extent of this Arctic air. You can just see it engulfing BC and Alberta and trying to get out into Western Washington here. And you can imagine places east of the Cascades and Idaho and Montana are going to get extremely cold coming up here, and especially east of the Rockies. Just some bitter cold Arctic air is on its way. 6 to 10 day, no surprise here. And yeah, so anyway, I'm probably going to do a live stream. If I don't do it tonight, it might be Wednesday night. I'm probably going to be out chasing this storm somewhere, maybe the Washington coast or Whidbey Island, or maybe I'll go do the blizzard up in the mountains. Who knows? We'll have to see what comes today, and I'll try to finalize my plans there. But we're probably going to do a live stream again later this week. And of course, we'll do the daily briefings as per normal. So anyway, hope you guys liking these videos. Click like and subscribe. We'll do this again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.